Karlach was my favorite character in Baldur's Gate 3. She's funny, amazing in combat, and has a beautiful outlook on life. So when I found this miniature on Etsy, I knew I had to get one and give her a really awesome paint job. I'm starting with a black primer, then layering up a series of progressively brighter reds on her skin. My goal here is to build a gradient between bright areas that would catch sunlight and dark areas that would be in shadow. At this stage, things were looking alright, but I wanted to up the contrast. I added some light skin paint to my mix, then started going over all the raised areas with my brush. Karlach has some pretty crazy burns all over her body, and I wanted to make sure that these details didn't get washed out. I also hit areas of importance like the ears, hands, and the face. For comparison, here's what she looked like before, and here's the after. Alright, while these areas are technically where light would hit, it looks really artificial at this stage. To correct this, I'm going to use a technique called glazing. I'm going to dilute my paint down quite a bit, then wick most of it off with a paper towel. This leaves a tiny bit of translucent pigment on the brush tip, and allows me to paint super thin layers to blend colors together. I literally have to do this about 10 or 20 times, but it's a great technique to make super soft blends, and it's worth it for important areas like the face.
Hell yes.
Okie dokie, I think the red skin is done. Next, I wanted to add a glow effect to represent her infernal engine, the burning artificial heart in her chest.
Hubba hubba.
I loaded up some white into my airbrush, then feathered it out around her chest with the strongest concentration in the middle, mimicking how light diffuses away from the source. Then it was as simple as taking some orange and gently spraying a layer on top, and boom, instant glow effect. Let's paint her face now, starting with the part I'm really dreading, her eyes. They're my favorite feature Karlach has, and they have a unique iris shape and layered color that just looks super badass. I wanted to try and replicate these details on the model, but her eyes are literally smaller than the head of a ballpoint pen. I spent some time creating a plan of attack, stalled for 30 minutes because I'm afraid of failure, then dove in. Step 1. Take an off-white ivory and very gently fill in her eyeballs. Phew. Okay, not bad. Step 2, hesitate again for another 15 minutes. Step 3, take pure black and paint a circle in the eye. Okay, one down. Then paint the other one and pray to Papa John that the two dots line up and she doesn't look cross-eyed. Whew, damn, okay, I think we're doing alright. Step 4, paint orange inside the black dot, leaving an even circle around the edges. Oh god, okay, I think we did it. Step 5, take a bright yellow and paint a vertical iris inside the black circle.
Yeah, dog, you got this.
Step 6, paint a tiny black line down the middle of the previous step. Come on, come on. Yes, yes. And holy crap, I still can't believe I was able to pull it off. As a final touch, I took some watered down gray paint and hit the white of the eyes. The reason for this is that although eyeballs are technically white, they're usually in shadow under our brow. You can even see this gray color in the reference picture that we used, and now the eyes look much more natural. Alright, just a few more quick details for the face. First, Karlach has a little eyeliner, so I added some black around her eyes. I also darkened her lips just a touch with some dark red. Finally, Karlach has some cute, subtle freckling, so I added some tiny brown dots on the top of her cheeks and nose. Hell yes, dude. I was really nervous about this stage, but now she looks just like Karlach.
Woo! Yeah, dog, give me a high five.
Alright, let's switch gears and do her clothes now. I coated her pants and arms with a neutral black, then started base coating her leather straps in a nice deep brown. Just with these colors blocked in, her overall profile was really starting to come together. I'm taking a dark gray, and I'm just going over all the raised folds of her clothes, boots, and gloves. This is going to give it much more definition and make it look like a semi-shiny leather. Her clothes have a lot more definition now, but some of the highlights are a little harsh and stripy. I could use glazes to blend them like I did for the face, but that would literally take forever, so I'm just going to use my airbrush. I loaded up the cup with gray paint, but I added a lot more thinner this time to make it more translucent. I then hit all the hard edges around the highlight, softening the boundaries between the black and the gray and blending everything together. The final result is much more smooth, making it look like actual black leather. Here's a before and after shot to compare. Okay, time for the straps. Taking a bright beige, I carefully hit the edge of the strap with the tip of my brush. I did this pretty roughly and intentionally left a lot of gaps, streaks, and dots along the edge. What we're doing here is mimicking what happens to leather when it gets weathered. It leaves behind bright rawhide and usually happens along the edge. I added in some light scratches on the band of the leather itself and sprinkled in some cuts with pure black. And boom! The strap is just so much more interesting to look at now. I used this same technique on the rest of her chest, pants, boots, and arms. It's super easy to do, but Karlach has a ton of straps and this took about 6 hours or so. Whenever I have to do repetitive stuff like this, I try to treat it like meditation and really focus on my inner thoughts.
Your YouTube channel's going to fail. You suck at painting. You're the least favorite in your group of friends.
Done. Karlach now has so much more character, and this really shows that you can be a no-skill pleb like me and still get results. Okay, let's do her axe, starting with the wrap around the handle. I wanted this to look different than the leather on the rest of her body, so I chose a lighter color, then laid in a dark wash into the recesses for contrast. To weather the straps, I busted out my dry brushes. Dry brushing is just taking a big fat brush, getting most of the paint off, and then running the rest of it along the surface. The paint will barely catch the edges, leaving behind a rough pattern like this. Okay, let's do the axe head. Where did I put it? Oh, thanks, Reepicheep. Karlach's axe is a big focal point of the model, so I wanted to make it really fancy. I'm going to paint it using a technique called non-metallic metal. This is essentially an optical illusion to paint metals without using metallic paint, just like how a traditional artist might do it. In this case, I'm using a series of blue paints which I chose to contrast with Karlach's red skin. First, a coat of dark sea blue. Next, I'm taking a lighter blue and I'm painting a tiny little squiggly shape, then tracing lines around it over and over like ripples. What I'm doing here is mimicking Damascus patterns. This is a real-world blacksmithing technique that makes beautiful wavy designs in the steel of weapons. Boy, let me tell you, this took a really long time. It was also super stressful and required all of my concentration to get the lines uniform and as close to each other as possible. Ooh, damn, that looks pretty good. Alright, so the next step is... Wait a minute. Oh, son of a bit. I begrudgingly pushed myself to do the other side and ended up with a sick pattern on both faces.
I mean, that's cool and all, but it doesn't really look like metal.
I'm getting there. The first step is taking a bright white and hitting all of the edges. This mimics how light gathers on the edge of metallic objects in real life. Next, I took my airbrush and started building some highlights on areas I think would catch the light. And you can see how this effect instantly gives it that nice metallic sheen. I used progressively brighter blue shades, then finished up with a subtle hint of yellow to imply a direct reflection of the sun, which is, yellow. Back to the brush for the final detail, glazing in some black. Metallics tend to have a lot of contrast between light and dark, so I gently darkened up the areas opposite of the highlights. Oh, hell yes. It did turn out more magical looking than I expected, but it definitely looks like something you would find in Faerun. The handle was done pretty quickly by painting it brown, hitting the wood grain with some dry brushing, then giving it a wash to give it a nice, dark finish effect. For the head of the axe, I wanted to do a different metal color than the blade. Karlach spent a lot of time in Avernus, which is basically D&D hell, so I imagine integrating some black volcanic metal that you might find in a place like that. To do this, I'm using some muted brown grays, and I'm going in and painting reflections where I imagine the light is going to hit. Karlach is holding the axe at an angle, so I layered in the color on the far end, progressively adding brighter highlights. Man, I absolutely love the process of making metallic illusions become more and more believable. And soon I had a nice sinister black metal, and that's going to be the axe arm donezo. I liked this black metal effect so much, I decided to do a whole bunch of details with it, like all the studs on her armor and the little vents on her shoulders, giving them a nice shiny pop. Next, I'm going to switch gears and do all of her gold details, which she has a ton of. The basic technique is effectively the same as the metal. This time I'm starting with a dark brown, highlighting with some burnt orange, then hitting the accents with a super bright yellow, blending it all together to complete the illusion. I'll cover the process for this gold in more detail in my next video when I paint Melania from Elden Ring, so be sure to sub to see that. I have over 20 gold pieces to paint, so while I'm doing this, I wanted to quickly share why I like Karlach so much. 2023 was one of the worst years of my depression ever, and without going into too many details, I really started to think about what the world would be like without me in it. And although it sounds really dumb, Karlach was a great reminder for how beautiful being alive is. She doesn't take anything for granted, and her story really made me think about all the amazing things in my life. My wonderful wife, my supportive family and friends, and all the happy memories I've made over the years. There's no doubt that we live in a pretty fucked up world, but there's also a lot of beauty in it too. Okay, that was a lot of work, but now we have some lovely looking gold. 3 more details here and then we should be done. I painted her hair black, but selectively dry brushed on some reds and oranges onto her hair. This is to represent how her hair sometimes catches fire in the game. Next, I painted her horns. I used a much brighter brown than I wanted the final color to be, because I immediately hit it with a dark wash to seep into all the little recesses. Finally, I took some watered down black and painted on the lines of her tattoos, and Karlach was pretty much finished. Before the final reveal, thank you so much for watching my video. I'm a brand new channel and I've been really struggling a lot with self-doubt about YouTube, so every like, comment, and subscribe really means a lot to me. If you'd like to support future videos, I have a Patreon and Discord set up where you can ask me directly for critiques and advice on your own projects. Plus, 50% of all pledges will go directly to charity forever. Alright Tippothy, cue up the glory footage.
Oh hell yeah, dog. Let's go.
Voices